Hello, everyone. Ready for a scary story that'll have you sleeping soundly? Please like the video and subscribe to our channel. And also, don't forget to share where you're listening from. I hope you get a great night's rest. The trees grew thick along the edge of the gravel road. Branches gnarled like fingers in prayer or warning. The air was still. No birds, no breeze. Just the crunch of tires on forgotten stones and the distant hum of cicadas in the underbrush. Samantha Burke leaned forward in the driver's seat, squinting through the windshield as the road narrowed. Overgrown vines clawed at the edges of the path. Somewhere up ahead, past the dying pines and fog-choked hollows, was Ashmoor Orphanage. She hadn't been here in over 20 years, and she had promised herself she never would be again. The orphanage came into view like something exhumed. 3 stories of weather-worn stone, sagging beams, and shattered windows loomed behind a rusted iron gate. The sign still hung above it all, crooked, letters barely legible. Ashmoor Children's Home, EST. 1908, the place had been condemned decades ago. A fire, rumors, a string of missing persons that had quietly been buried by time. No one talked about Ashmoor anymore. But Samantha had received a letter 3 days ago. No return address. No explanation. Just 7 words. In perfect, childlike handwriting. Come home. They're waiting for you. And on the back, her name. Her real name. The one she hadn't used since the day she left this place. She stepped through the gate. The iron hinges groaned. The grounds were overgrown. Playground equipment rusted into skeletons. A single swing creaked gently in the still air, though no wind stirred. The front doors were ajar. Dot inside. The air was stale and damp. Mold clung to the wallpaper in soft patches. Children's drawings, water-stained and curling, still clung to the walls. Crooked houses, smiling stick figures, sunless skies. One caught her eye, a child with red crayon eyes and long, spidery fingers. The others in the picture were faceless. Her own name was scribbled in the corner. She hadn't drawn that dot, had she? Footsteps echoed above her light dot barefoot. She froze, heart hammering. Dot. There should be no one here. And then she heard the laugh, high, delicate, a giggle. Drifting down from the 2nd floor, she whispered to herself, "It's just the building settling." All walls, rats, echoes. But the laugh came again, clearer this time, closer, and a voice, "So Mimi." Her knees locked. That was what they used to call her, back when she was one of them, back when she believed in the dark. She climbed the stairs slowly, each step creaking in protest. Dot at the top. The hallway stretched out in both directions, lined with empty rooms and peeling doors. The smell of mildew was stronger here. Beneath it, something sweeter. Rotted sugar. Dot. She moved toward the old dormitory. Halfway there, a child stepped into view. Small, barefoot, clad in gray. Tattered pajamas, their hair matted with dust. They smiled, and without blinking, they said, "You came back. We missed you." Samantha's breath caught. The child's face was familiar in the way that dreams are. details half remembered but the eyes were too large, the skin too pale, the smile too knowing, and yet something in her chest tightened. Recognition, dread. She took a step forward. "What's your name?" The child tilted their head, smile never fading. "You already know it, Sammy." Their voice was soft, not threatening, but there was nothing behind it. No emotion, no innocence, just echo. Then the child turned and ran down the corridor into the dormitory. Laughter followed. Not one voice, several children laughing. Children laughing. Children that shouldn't be here. Samantha stepped into the dawn. The beds were still there. Small metal frames with decayed mattresses and moth-eaten sheets. The room was dim, lit only by streaks of light that filtered through shattered window panes. Dust floated in the beams like ash dot. Something moved in the far corner. A shadow too low to be standing, too still to be breathing. Then a music box began to play. Delicate, warped ring around the rosy. She turned slowly. In the center of the room sat 5 children, cross-legged, perfectly, still staring at her. They were dressed like old photographs, clothes faded, faces pale, all smiling. One held a torn stuffed rabbit with missing eyes. Another rocked back and forth, singing softly under their breath. The smallest one whispered. We waited. Samantha backed away. I don't understand. Who are you? The girl with the rabbit giggled. You were one of us, remember, before you forgot, before you left us here. The one singing stopped, looked up. Do you remember what we did to Miss Eloise? Samantha's throat went dry. Miss Eloise, the night matron, stern, cruel, a tyrant in black heels, gone, burned in the fire. Or so they'd said. Samantha shook her head. That wasn't real. That was an accident. The boy in the corner stood up. No accidents, he said flatly. Only games. He took a step toward her. Another child joined him. Then another. Their eyes didn't blink. Their heads twitched in small, unnatural motions, not like living. Things like puppets. Samantha ran out of the dormitory, back down the stairs, heart pounding. Dust rose around her in clouds as her feet hit the floorboards. She didn't look back. She couldn't. Not until she reached the main hallway again. There, the light had changed. Everything was warmer, brighter. The wallpaper was clean. The floor polished. Children's laughter echoed from the playroom. She turned and saw herself, 6 years old, sitting on the rug, holding hands with the others, playing a game, a circle, smiling, laughing, and the older children, the ones from upstairs, watching from the shadows, their eyes black, their mouths sewn shut. The vision flickered. The hall returned to ruin. Samantha fell to her knees, gasping. The air was colder now, and from upstairs one of the children called down, "Wanna play hide and seek?" Another voice, higher, sweeter, echoed, "If we find you, you stay." Samantha staggered to her feet, hands shaking. The voice echoed down the stairwell again, sing-song and sweet. 1, 2, 3, better hide, before we see. Her childhood instincts flared, not from fear, but muscle memory. Hide and seek wasn't a game here. It was a ritual. Back then, the stakes had always felt real. The fear had never fully left. Now, she understood why she ran. She ran, not out the front door. She'd tried that. She remembered trying that once, long ago. The gates would seal. The paths would vanish. Ashmoor didn't let you leave unless it let you go. And right now, it wanted her inside, wanted to play. She ducked into the old library, rows of crumbling books. The smell of rot and mold clung to the walls. Her flashlight beam cut through the dark, bouncing off dusty spines and cracked shelves. She crouched behind a toppled bookcase, heart pounding. The silence stretched. Then, creaking floorboards, tiny feet, bare, slow, deliberate. A child's voice called out, "We remember the way you cried when they took Timmy." Samantha's breath caught Timothy Hawes, 8 years old, shy, stuttered, disappeared one winter night. They said he ran away. She remembered his bunk being cold the next morning, his socks still on the radiator. No one ever talked about it. Again, she whispered to herself. "He didn't run, did he?" "No," a voice answered. We dragged him to the basement. The child was standing across the room now. Small grinning dark around the eyes, like bruises made from within. He giggled, he begged, "Just like you will." Samantha threw a book at the boy and bolted. The laugh that followed was shrill, joyous, wrong. She tore through the hallways, memories rushing with every turn. The nurses' quarters, the cafeteria, the art room. Her footsteps felt echoed, repeated, as if she was stepping where she'd stepped 1,000 times before. And maybe she was. Ashmoor was looping her, feeding her its games. She stumbled into the chapel, once pristine, now mold-blackened, with shattered stained glass raining down hues of crimson and gold. A dozen child-sized chairs faced the altar, and on the altar lay a doll. No, not a doll. A body. Small, burnt, UNMOVING. Clutched in its hand was a paper daisy, one of the crafts they used to make. Samantha stepped forward. Her fingers trembled as she reached for the note pinned to the child's chest. "We gave her to the fire so we could stay. You said you would too." Footsteps behind her. Dozens, too light to be adults, too many to be anything but a gathering. She turned. They stood in the chapel doorway, all of them the children of Ashmoor eyes, hollow, smiles too wide, hands empty, except for toys twisted into weapons, a music box, a jump rope, a sharpened block. The boy from the dormitory stepped forward. "You promised," he whispered. "You said if we stayed, you'd stay. You said you'd be our sister." Samantha backed toward the altar. "I didn't know what you were doing. I didn't remember, but you do now." They stepped closer. The smallest one smiled sweetly. "We forgive you, Sammy." Then, in a whisper that burned the air, "But you still have to stay." The children fanned into the room like smoke, silent, smiling, surrounding her. The air grew colder with every step they took, the stained glass shards on the floor crackling beneath their bare feet. Samantha pressed her back against the altar, heart hammering, the smell of burnt cloth thick in her throat. She held up her hands. "You don't have to do this. I didn't know. I was a child, just like you." A little girl with a single pigtail stepped forward, dragging a cracked porcelain doll by the leg. "But we didn't forget," the girl whispered. "We waited in the dark. We stayed, like you said." Another child, a boy with a missing ear and a wide grin stitched into his cheek, chimed in. "You were the first one they picked. You showed us how." Samantha's mouth opened, but no sound came, because somewhere in the back of her mind, beneath the trauma, beneath the years, something stirred. A memory she had buried, a long hallway, a whispered chant, a circle drawn in chalk, and the matron screaming, not in rage, in fear. Samantha, in the center of it, holding the book, smiling. "No," she whispered, but it was coming back. Now, it wasn't just a fire. It wasn't an accident. They had done something. They had called something a deal. Stay forever young. Stay forever safe. One by one, they gave their names to the dark, and she was the first dot, the sister, the anchor. "You started it," said the boy with the stitched mouth. "But you left. You broke the circle." The girl with the doll stepped forward. "So we were stuck, and the dark got hungry." Another voice from the shadows. It needed someone to feed it. The altar behind her vibrated, not a sound, but a throb beneath her spine. The body on it twitched once, and then from every child at once. Now it wants you back. The chapel doors slammed shut. The stained glass window above the altar cracked. Down the center, the light dimmed. The air thickened. The children chanted now, softly, rhythmically. "Sammy came and left us here, but now she's back. The circle's near. Close the loop and make it whole. Give her flesh and take her soul." Samantha screamed and shoved the nearest child aside. They didn't cry. They didn't bleed. They just giggled. She ran, sprinting past them, back into the hallway, deeper into the orphanage, into the old storage wing. Her legs burned. Her lungs tore for air. She burst into the old records room. It was frozen in time. Files scattered. A single light bulb swinging. She ripped open a drawer, searching for anything that could prove she hadn't been part of this. But what she found were photographs, faded, and in all of them, her, always at the edge of the group, always holding a candle, always smiling beneath one photo. A label, initiate, Samantha Burke, minus 1962. She felt the floor sway beneath her. "No," she whispered, "that's not right. I'm 36. I was adopted in 99. This can't." The air behind her stirred. A voice, warm and close, breathed. "Time bends in places where the rules are broken. Sister." She turned. The children were there again, all of them, and they spoke together. One voice, one will. "You broke the circle. Now we need your name again." The air was so heavy, Samantha could barely breathe. The children stood in perfect formation, inside the records room, shoulder to shoulder, eyes unblinking. Behind them, the shadows pulsed, not with light, but with memory, bending and folding space into shapes that didn't belong in this world. Samantha backed into a corner, her hands trembling. "This isn't real," she said. "This place, it twists things. Time, thought. This is just another illusion." The girl with the pigtail stepped forward, smiling with something colder than innocence. "Then why do you remember now?" The files still lay at her feet, her name on paper, her face in photos that couldn't exist unless they did. The orphanage had burned down in '84, but she was born in '87, wasn't she? Samantha clutched her head. What if that wasn't true? What if none of her life after Ashmoor had ever happened? What if it had all been a construct, a fantasy stitched together to shield her from what she did, what they all did? The boy with the stitched mouth lifted a broken candle in both hands. "We need you back, sister. You broke the chain," said another child. "But now we can finish it." The light flickered. The hallway beyond them darkened, shadows drawing inward, folding like lungs holding a final breath. And the song began again, softer this time, dot closer. Ashes, ashes. Sammy fell down. They surrounded her, not rushing, waiting, because she had to say it. She had to choose it. Samantha closed her eyes. Inside her mind, something old stirred. Not evil, not human, just hungry. A darkness born of forgotten promises and the silence of buried children. It whispered, "Speak your name and be forgiven." She opened her mouth, but a voice broke through the dark one she hadn't heard. In decades, small, familiar. "Don't," Samantha gasped. There, at the edge of the children, stood Timmy Halls, still 8 years old, still shy. But his eyes weren't black. They were clear. He looked at her and shook his head. "You don't belong to it. You never did. You were just scared like the rest of us." The other children hissed, twisting toward him. "You broke the pact, Timmy," the stitched-mouth boy said. "You left the dark." "I remembered who I was," Timmy whispered. "That's all it takes." Samantha dropped to her knees. Her memories were wrong, incomplete, but something deep inside was hers. Something real, a red ribbon, a drawing of a sun with too many rays, the smell of soap and chalk, and the promise she made the night she ran. "I'll come back for you." She'd forgotten. They hadn't. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and she meant it. The children stopped. Every single one turned to her again. And this time, there was no malice, only longing, grief, stillness. The shadows in the hall unraveled like old thread. The air lifted. The chanting stopped, and the candlelight dimmed. The girl with the pigtail stepped back, her smile fading. "You remembered?" Samantha nodded. "I did." Timmy smiled faintly. "Then we can go now." The children turned, walking one by one into the dark, not vanishing, not crossing. And when the last one, the stitched-mouth boy, passed her, he paused. "I hope you never forget us again." And then he was gone. Ashmoor fell silent. The windows shattered. The walls groaned, and for the first time in decades, the front door creaked open. Samantha stepped into the light. The forest was quiet. The swing on the playground was still, and the orphanage behind her was crumbling, truly empty. 1 year later, Samantha stood before a granite marker at the edge of town. A new plaque freshly placed, Ashmoor Children's Home, in memory of those who never left below it. A list of names, she touched each one with her fingers. Timothy Hawes, Lillian Cole, Milo Jensen, and last, Samantha Burke, sister. She smiled softly, lit a candle, and whispered into the wind, "I remember."